I am Lord Charles Raven. If all the world's a stage, and all the men and women merely players, they have their exits and their entrances. And one man in his time plays many parts. That pretty much is me right there. And here's my part that I play in. Imagine for a moment you're on a battlefield. It's a green, wide open field. You're in your armor. Feel the breeze coming in. And the excitement starts to build. You're standing there with about 3,000 people on your side, and everybody's wearing a little blue piece of tape marking your side of the battlefield and your army. You look across the field, and there's your enemy wearing the red tape, and that's your sworn enemy for the day. And you wait in anticipation as the cannon fires. And the cannon fires, and your heart skips a little bit of a beat because you know you're about ready to go. And you start marching in that armor, and you hear the clank of that metal. And you've got your wooden sword, like this one right here. And you're beating on a shield, and your whole army's beating on a shield. Boom, 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 and doing some kind of war chant. And you're slowly progressing, and your line of troops are heading towards the other line of troops, and you meet in the battlefield. And right as you hit in the battlefield, those two shield formations hit one another, and all chaos ensues. And you're throwing your sword about and slaying your enemy, and they're trying to get shots on you, and you're protecting yourself behind your shields, and your archers are shooting their rubber tip arrows and taking out the bad guys, and you've got ballistas and catapults throwing these mock rocks at your enemy, and they're getting hit and falling down dead, and it's all a game. But it's not a video game. It's not even a rolling the dice game. It's actually putting on armor for a sport-like combat to go out in a field and fight on a battlefield, a 40-acre field, with an army of 4,000 on your side and another army of 4,000 on the other side. Like Braveheart on steroids, right? And it's a great time. And it's a wonderful time because we put on the pageantry, like I do, of the clothing, and you have the pieces that denote your rank. I am a lord in this realm. And I found this later on in my life. I found this while I was down in the 82nd Airborne at Fort Bragg. And I met some people down in Wilmington. They were part of a group. And they invited me over, and I had a great time. I was over at their house. There was a medieval tent in the backyard. There was torches all lining the backyard. They put me in armor for the first time. I got to fight. I had a blast. Met some really good folks. They took me in. We had a great time because I grew up. And that's what my pictures are for. I grew up. That is me, Lord Charles Raven. I grew up on the stories of King Arthur. I grew up on the stories of Robin Hood. And then later on in life, I find this living history medieval hobby group, right? Their name is the SCA. So when I found this, I found my niche. I found where I belong, right? The group that I'm part of, they're called the SCA, Society for Creative Anachronism. Anachronism is something out of its proper place and time. Not anarchism. Believe me, I've had to explain that one to the Army a few times, okay? Anachronism is us. We're out of our proper place and time. We're modern people living in a medieval society, right? And we don't always build our armor out of metal. Well, sometimes we'll build it out of plastic and just cover it up to make it look medieval, medieval-esque, So, but the SCA started back in 1966 in Berkeley, California. It started as a theme party with some college kids. And they liked doing it so well that they decided to start doing this on a regular basis. And they actually built the first armor out of mop buckets that they, cut with some shears, and they used the mop handles as their first swords. And they had the first tournament And it started then, and it migrated because it's college kids and Army soldiers that took it on and took it to other places throughout the U.S. and even into Germany. And now the SCA encompasses the world. There is probably estimated 150,000 of us in the world. And the gathering in Pennsylvania, Pensacola, which I'm going to get to here in a minute. These are some of the castles actually that we played in Germany, but I'll get to that here in a minute too. These are all the concepts that I grew up with. So the group started in 1966 and started spreading, and now it encompasses the world. And the reason why I say 150,000, yeah, there we are. Welcome to the Middle Ages. A different kind of history class. What's your hobby? I think that pretty well states it right there. That's actually one of the battlefields on Pensac. They estimate of the 10 to 15,000 people that come and join up at Pensac, that's probably 10% of the people that play throughout the world. And I've met people even on deployment in Bosnia. I took my my armor to Iraq with a couple of my soldiers that were part of my crew from what I said before, and we actually sword fought when we were off mission to let some steam off. And the company enjoyed it. They would sit around the fire, or sit around, they'd get some bleachers, and they'd gather around and they'd watch us fight and have a good time. It encompassed not just the sword fighting, but there's all kinds of aspects. There's musicians. This is actually a good shot of the 500-acre campground that Pensac is. It's in Cooper's Lake Campground in Pennsylvania. It's a 500-acre campground. There's my wife and I, and there's our tent. See, like I said, I'm her Robin Hood, she's my Maid Marian, right? And it's a 2-week-long festival, and a lot of people state that it's a medieval Woodstock, and that's a pretty accurate description, I think. Here's some more of the castle battles. There's an actual wooden fortress that we do fight in and have a good time with. There are actually catapults and trebuchets. They launch a mock rock. It's 20 tennis balls wrapped together with duct tape, and it comes flying at you. And even if it hits your shield, you're still considered catastrophically dead because it would have squished you like a bug. Okay? These are actually some of the camps. They camp there, and they put up a front door to control the access to their camp. That's actually a front door to a camp. These guys actually work for Hollywood and build movie sets. That's all plastic that they rivet together on a 2x4 frame, right? A lot of people get really elaborate. My encampment, I used to have a medieval tent and a dining canvas and all that sort of thing in a metal trailer, but some meth head in Oklahoma stole it from me. So stole all my gear, and insurance kicked in, and I at least was able to replace the tent, because that was a high-end piece that, well, my wife actually built the tent, but they were able to replace the tent. So it still hurts though, because here I am in a society where chivalry is real to us, where the code of chivalry is real to us, and then I get stolen from by someone who is lower than low, you know. But that's life. The campground, there is no lighting, so it's all campfires and torch lit. So it really makes it magical in the evenings. I've made a lot of friends over the years. I actually met my wife doing this hobby. She was from a group in New York, and I was from Virginia, and we ended up there, and we had some common friends and got introduced and that sort of thing. And we lost track of each other for a couple of years. I got back into service. That's when I came up here. I lost track of her, and when I caught back up with her a couple of years later, she asked me if I had never thought about us, and I told her yes, because I was the hopeless romantic, see. And I kept a subway token from our first date in New York City for 3 years, and I showed it to her, and she melted in my hand, and I married her. There's me as the romantic. See? There's my lady fair.
Romantic.
There's my princess. In fact, I think I might even have a picture here of my Yep, there we are. That was actually the weekend that we got engaged. And we had a full medieval wedding. We actually planned it. I went to Germany with the service, and then I came back for that summer for our wedding, and we actually planned it in Pittsburgh, which was just south of the campground. And we planned it during the 2-week time so that all our friends could come and enjoy the wedding. We did a full medieval wedding in a cathedral church in Pittsburgh, and had a grand time doing it. There's my family, and the preacher's actually dressed as a Templar knight. That was my uncle, my cousin, my sister, my mom. And then this was a friend of mine that I met when I was downrange in Bosnia, and he ended up becoming part of my my groom's entourage for my wedding. And him and I have kept friends. And this is me and my wife and all of our group from Oklahoma in the living room of our house. So it's enriched my life. It's been a great thing to be able to be part of something that's really where I needed to belong all along. There's the Code of Chivalry. And what's interesting is the Code of Chivalry, if you'll notice, actually is the code that they based the Army values off of. So it's still real to me. It's just now with a newer twist.